Hey fellow tankers, Mobius Y here with another World of Tanks console related video, and here we're doing another map drive around. By request from one of my viewers, we're taking a look at Dragon Ridge. This is a map that I myself have not seen pop up a heck of a lot lately. Well, I mean that kind of happens when I don't play either, but we're going to take a quick look around. It's seen some significant changes since it was first introduced on the console version, and the changes are much better than the way it used to be. So we've got Rhymes with Noobs on the other team there. Really appreciate her taking some time out of her evening so that I can record this video for you guys super quick. Okay, so starting off, on Dragon Ridge, the two spawn points are located here and here, obviously right by the flag. Now, both teams tend to spawn in the lower parts of this valley area. So the first thing that everybody does as soon as the game starts is pretty much everybody climbs this hill so that we can get up on top. Like so. And once everybody's up on top, then they tend to kind of spread out. What tends to happen in the battle is you get a pretty big fighting force that goes here, and you also get a fighting force that goes this way. This side of the map is actually more critical to your team's success in the game. And I'll explain why in a little bit here. We'll go back to the start points. I'm just going to highlight some key things to watch out for when you're first moving out from your spawn point. Now, the reason why the upper sections of this map are more important is, simply put, because they're the high ground. And it's a lot easier for you to reposition yourself to a point where you can pull back to your base and reset somebody who's putting cap pressure on your base, or it's easier for you to maneuver around and flank any remaining enemies that are over here in this section of the map, or even anybody remaining in this section of the map. Or if anybody is left over on the opponent's side down in one of these valleys here, it's a lot easier to encircle them and cut off their escape routes if you control the upper portions of the map here and here where I'm sitting right now. So this area here right next to the town tends to be a pretty hotly contested zone. It's also a very prime location for artillery to line up and blast heavy tanks. So that's something you really need to watch out for when you're with your heavy tanks. If you are contesting this top area here with your heavy tank, or any tank for that matter, and you're working one of these corners, say this corner here, if you spawn in the north, this is actually a pretty good spot for you to play some peekaboo around this corner, or even set up for some side scraping on this corner here. It's very likely that an artillery piece that is sitting down here or moves all the way over here, they will more than likely blast the crap out of you. And that's part of the reason you see a lot of people going down here, is because it's a lot more protected by artillery. However, that part of the map is unfortunately not as critical to controlling as it is with these top areas. Now on the other side of the map here, you've got some pretty interesting zones where you can fight from. If you park right here, you can actually get shots down below, straight into this corner that I just shot at. Right there. A lot of people like to go there from the north side. They tend to come down this route here and go right behind that hill there. You can get some pretty good shots on them from this location. If you spawn in the south, when they come around the corner, you can punish them with some extra shots into the side of their turret, for example. But you do kind of want to make sure you have good gun depression. You can also pull a tank over to here. It's really bumpy, but if you can manage your gun depression, again, making sure that you're not accidentally pointing off into the sky when you back up too far onto this bump here, you can actually use this corner pretty well to side scrape around here and brawl and fight with anybody else who is right across from you over here in this section coming from the north spawn. So typically, once you control this top area here in the town, you're gonna be slugging it out. There might be some people moving into this town area here, and there's a lot of buildings where you can find some cover. You will be somewhat protected from artillery, but it's a lot more difficult to move around in because some of these buildings are secretly indestructible, and you wind up finding out the hard way which ones are and which ones are not. So this side of the map here tends to be where some light tanks and some medium tanks will wind up going, or even some faster TDs like a Hellcat, for example. If you spawn from the north side, if you spawn from over here, this is actually a spot that I like to come to myself. If you come up either this road here or this road here, you work your way up the valley here, you can come up to this point here. You've got a little bit of a rise that you can use for hard cover. You bring your tank all the way over to here until you are able to peek out just enough where you can get side shots on any enemy tanks that spawn in the south side. You are actually able to shoot them if they're in these sections here. Very easy to get side shots on them from there. And conversely, if you spawn in the south itself, you can also bring your tank down along this route here through this little pass, climbing up over here. There's a bet that you will come across some enemy resistance from the other side. Once you come up to this point, you might run into an enemy scout or a medium that's going for a super flank. But if you're able to sneak in all the way around here uncontested, again, you are able to pull up into this zone here, kind of use these buildings as hard cover, and position yourself to take any shots into these town areas here if enemies from the north are making a push that way. Also, if it's clear, you can continue down this road, trying to stay unspotted as best as you can. Coming up behind this building over here, you should be able to get some shots into any enemies that are over here in this section. They tend to park up right about there. That's the corner that they'll be coming around. You can use this building as hard cover. Note that this building is destructible, so it can get shot out. Best bet is if you have a medium tank with pretty good gun depression, you can kind of just work this ridge, poke over, take your shot, and then duck back down like so. Sometimes you'll see some fighting going on in this area here. Over here on this side of the map, either in the north or the south, what tends to happen is somebody will get caught out in the open. Often a little light tank gets caught out by a medium tank that simply outguns them, and then the medium will just chase them down into the valley and take them out. If that winds up being you, it's entirely your choice what you want to do. You have the choice of either continuing down along the valley floor and trying to remain unspotted and see if you can take out their artillery, or if you do so in the north, that works as well, going along this route here. Or you make your way back up into this town area so that you can try and get some side shots on any of the enemies that are either grouped up somewhere along the 6th line here. So I think that gives a pretty good gist of how you want to try to control the high ground. The high ground is the Arctic Magnet kind of zone, so you do want to be really, really careful of that. For starters, expect it to happen. People really like to bring their artillery either way over here into, say, B2 or even over here into J3. It's very easy to get shots around these corners here in this high ground when they do that, so just be wary of that. Something else to also be careful for is if you spawn on the north side, there's this gap here. You can get enemies lining up on this ridge here, particularly enemy tank destroyers. That's actually this ridge way down here. I can't ping it. It's way down there that I just shot at. When you cross this gap here, you need to be very careful of that. Do it as quickly as you can, or just come up on this part of the hillside here to avoid that gap altogether. Slower tanks will have a bit more difficulty climbing this part here, but as I said, you're safe from getting shot in the side while crossing this gap. So mind the gap when you're coming up this way from the north spawn. So let's just scoot down this way, and I'll show you the same thing from the south spawn. So like I said, this little dip area down here, this little valley area, there's some hotly contested battles that tend to go along here. It's not as vital as the high ground, like I said, but there is still some pretty big fighting that goes on. You'll find somebody parking around this corner here. They tend to poke out this way, and then you can get shots on any enemies that are coming around that corner right in front of you. Or if you poke out far enough, anybody who's up on this ridge, you can get side shots into them if they're parked up there, trying to support down that way as well. If somebody's sitting up here, you can get side shots on them as well, but if you're at this part of the map, you are somewhat vulnerable to them. This area has been really fleshed out compared to the old Dragon Ridge, because you actually have this little section back here, which can be used for any little flanking maneuvers. Oh, that's a cliff. Oh boy. Okay, good. We're good. Mediums can try and flank down this way as well if the high ground on the left is just not really an option. You can come down this way and try and support any of your heavies that make their way down into this part of the map as well. So this is one map where it's really important, kind of like a city map. You really got to be paying attention to what's going on in your immediate area, as well as watching what's going on the other side of the map, so that you can look for attack routes that you can come in from, especially with your medium tanks, or just any tank altogether. I just do it instinctively since I've played so many mediums, but you know, it is what it is. From the south side, you tend to get somebody parking up around this corner here. They'll probably be battling it out with anybody who's around on that side. From the south spawn, they might be parking up right here at this corner as well. Although it's a little trickier because there is this kind of bump right behind it, right here. But you can get pretty nice and haul down. It's also a little bit more difficult to get good shots through this gap here. They have to be coming around this corner right in front of you here that I'm pointing at for you to be really effective on it. And as always, you got to watch for the flanks coming down on this road on the very edge of the map here, as that can happen. A quicker TD or a nice speedy medium tank or even a scout could scoot down that way, get a nice flank on you and really ruin your day. So it is what it is. Quite a few flanking opportunities down in this part, but this side of the map is very corridory, and that's a large part of the reason why you see a lot of heavies go down this way. It's a lot more protected from artillery, but it's not as vital, unfortunately, as holding the top part of the map. Because if you hold the top part of the map, you need to get back to your own base to defend it or something like that. You've got a huge downhill run, so you can pick up a lot of speed even in a slower tank. So from the south side, you can actually park some TDs up along here. This gives you a really good overwatch on the road going down this way. As you can see, that's the road that I'm looking at down along here. You can also bring your TDs a little more this way. Can't quite see around that corner very well. The corner that I'm looking at is actually right here on the right side there. But what a lot of people like to do from this side of the map is bring their TDs over here and really early in the game and just set up to shoot at anybody who's crossing this gap right over here, which is the one that I was at earlier. So if you get a couple TDs or anything with just really good accuracy, if they get up here quickly enough, you can set up and get some really early shots and just pow, get a nice shot into somebody's side. You can try blind firing across there if you so choose to, but without anybody being spotted over there, it's really difficult to know exactly what it is that you hit or how hard you hit them for. So it is what it is. Just something to note. Anybody coming from the north side could blind fire across that gap right back at you as well. So do note that is a thing as well. One thing to note on Dragon Ridge is the fields in these areas here. That part of the map and about this part of the map. They used to be kind of terraced rice fields, and they're not anymore. So they're a little bit more viable in terms of being able to use them. There are still some rice terraces. As you can see, there's some right in front of me here. And those are parts of the map where you kind of don't really want to be trying to go uphill on these parts, but you can go down them no problem. As you can see, I'm just trundling along this way. There's a nice gap between them where it's kind of flat field. Right here where I am, you can bring a tank with really good gun depression into this part here and kind of work this part of the town. It's really tricky to do it from here, but it is also an access route for any faster tanks to climb to this part of the hill. That way you don't have to go all the way around over here to G1 and climb the long way and possibly get holed up in this little choke point section right here in F1. And as you can see, there's more rice terraces, rice field terraces on the side of the hill down this way as well. These ones are much more pervasive. As you can see, I'm very easily getting stuck here. But again, they're much more flattened out, so it's a lot easier for a chase to happen down these hills, for example. Say a medium going after a speedy little scout that got caught out in the open. You want to chase him down, no problem. You can do so easily. And then you just got to use one of these roadways or the path that is not marked on the map where I'm pinging in F4 there to climb back up. So that's more or less it for Dragon Ridge. As I said, a lot of the fighting happens over here in this area here in the kind of E8, F8 area. It tends to just be a lot of heated action going on there, but the critical zone on the map is this town area at the very top of the hill, because if you control the high ground, your tanks that have really good turret armor and decent gun depression, they can really hold their own against any assault If you manage to take out all of the enemy tanks that are up in this high ground here, you have a much easier time holding back any enemies that are trying to make a push at any section of the map. You can come over to this side here. Anybody coming through the middle areas, either from the north or the south on this area here, you can easily get shots into them. If you're on the ridge looking this way, you got shots into the north base, and if you're on the ridge over here or even over here, you've got shots into the south base. It just allows a lot more freedom of movement if your team controls this part of the map. So that is why it is critical to most of the wins that happen on Dragon Ridge. So that's essentially it for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and thanks once again to Rhymes with Noobs for taking these last 15-20 minutes to basically waste her time so I could host the training room. As always, this has been Mobius. Thank you very much for watching. Hope to see you on the battlefield or in my next video, and happy tanking.